Hello friends, welcome to all of you on your channel, that is JE Physics Maniac. So today we are going to have a discussion on very important topic that is called Gauss law. It is bearing a huge significance in terms of our JE preparation, especially in electrostatics and application part. So basically Gauss's law is a typical mathematical form. It deals with a vector field, a continuity of the vector field in a smooth medium. But we are not going to make it too complex because we have some mathematical limitation to understand in its crude form. So basically we will understand this Gauss law in terms of electric flux and the surface surrounding a charge. So as you can see here in this diagram that there are several surfaces. I have taken S1, you can check that there is surface S1, S2, S3. So, and if you note these surfaces, if you check the surface S1 is basically a circular. If you talk about the two-dimensional, three-dimensional space, then it will appear to be a spherical, right? Then S2 is of arbitrary shape and size, and S3 is also arbitrary shape and size, so as S3, correct? So that means that the Gaussian surface which we will consider around a charge can be of any shape and size. There is no such limitation that it has to be symmetric all the time, correct? So this law is hugely significant because of two reasons. One, we can take any shape and size of the shared Gaussian boundary. Second, if there is a charge that is being encircled by any of the Gaussian surface, we can precisely calculate the value of electric field, right? And this Gauss law maintains such uniformity that it is the first law of Maxwell equation. Okay, Maxwell's equation. So Maxwell equation was a legendary work, probably you have heard of it, that the eternal quest of physics is to produce the unified theory of everything. And this was the first law which practically produced, or which practically combined, two of the greatest things in physics, that is, it combined electrostatics or electricity with magnetism, right? And in Maxwell's equation we basically have four set of equations. Out of the four set, one is this Gauss law, right? So it is hugely significant in terms of maintaining uniformity, right? And to understand Gauss's law in terms of mathematics, we need a little bit of introduction of another term which is called flux, which I am just coming after some point of time. So next, Gauss's law exists in two forms. Basically it exists in integral form as well as differential form, right? Now this differential form basically we use as a shortcut trick to get some of the question done in a very short span of time. So let us discuss about the integral form, only the statement. Understanding I am coming in the next slide. Integral form is closed integration E dot ds. You can see this is the surface. This is the surface I am talking about. And in that surface I have taken one elemental surface. This is the elemental surface. For this elemental surface, this is the area vector, elemental area vector, that is in that direction. And in that region electric field is in that direction, that is electric field. So for this particular thing, if I take the integration, closed integration of E vector dot dA vector, and if I integrate this particular element over this entire surface, so we'll get the entire result over this entire surface, correct? Or we can use another definition also, that is, we know that integration is also defined as limit of a sum, okay, out of three definitions that we have in integration. Reverse process of differentiation, that is one. Second is area under the curve, and the third is limit of a sum. So that means if I take a small area which is to be delta AI, and this is EI, and then we are calculating the so-called flux function as this, then taking the limit delta A tends to 0, this area elemental area tends to 0, so this will be converted to integration, right? So on a crude form we will remember close integration E dot dA, that is equal to Q enclosed divided by epsilon naught. It is better to remember Q enclosed. What is Q enclosed here? Q enclosed is the charge enclosed by the Gaussian boundary. Charge enclosed by the Gaussian boundary. Let me tell you one thing. In today's class, I am going to restrict my discussion on Gauss's law on the elementary level, because the detailed discussion of the Gauss's law, its limitation, its application, and all other higher order application we will be doing in the Feel the Physics series. So there is a separate video that will come up. Okay, right. Let's move on. So the next is most important thing, that is flux. What is flux? Flux is a very simple thing that we have to remember. It is the number of electric field lines passing through a surface perpendicularly. Now it's a kind of tricky game that we need to understand. See, the moment I am saying number of electric field lines, this number of electric field lines is basically the measure of electric field strength. Okay, it is the measure of electric field strength. All right. So if this is the electric field vector in that direction, as you can see, this is the electric field vector and this is the area vector. So we have to take the projection of the electric field along the area vector. Why? Because there is a term mentioning passing through the surface perpendicularly. So if the lines, try to understand, if the lines has to be perpendicular to the surface, that means the lines must cut like this. So here one word you need to understand clearly, that lines cutting a surface perpendicularly means they are either parallel or anti-parallel to the area vector. That is a thing that you need to understand. Okay, so they are cutting the surface perpendicularly means the lines are either parallel or anti-parallel to the area vector. So let us take a small example. Suppose this is a circular disc kind of thing you are getting, and I am taking one line is cutting it like this perpendicularly. So for the circular disc, this is the direction of area vector n cap. So you can see that this electric field and area vector are parallel to each other, right? If a line cuts in the opposite direction like this, so this line is also cutting the surface perpendicularly. In that case, this is the direction of n cap area vector and this is the direction of electric field line. So they are anti-parallel. So cutting a surface perpendicularly means that the lines are, or electric field vector is either parallel or anti-parallel to the area vector. That is the only thing you need to understand, right? So from there, flux we are defining to be E into A into cos theta. If E vector is parallel to A vector, that is area vector, in that case flux is positive and we will get the value of E into A. And if they are anti-parallel, in this case when they are parallel, that time theta equal to 0 degree. For anti-parallel, that means electric field vector and A vector are anti-parallel means theta equal to 180 degree. In that case, phi will become minus E dot A. Okay, so for any value when theta is lying which is greater than 0 degree but less than 90 degree, in this zone phi will be positive. Okay, clear? Chalo. So let us see few applications. I hope from the applications part it will be clear. First application we are seeing here, we are seeing a cylindrical element, and in this particular region there is an electric field in the rightward direction. So I will write E vector is basically equal to, I am writing E naught into I cap, as the field is directing in the rightward direction on a coordinate system, if I take a coordinate system, I will take like this. So this is x, this is y, and this is z. So I cap, j cap, and k cap. All right. So we will take three surfaces and we will name the surfaces like this is surface 1 that I will take. Here is surface 1. This is surface 1. Curved surface is surface 2 and this is surface 3. So I will calculate flux on the three surfaces one by one. So suppose for surface 1 first. So let's see what happens in surface 1. In surface 1, electric field is in the rightward direction as usual for all the surfaces. So electric field E vector is equal to E naught into I cap. Area vector, elemental area vector, dA vector is dA of minus I cap, right? So flux d phi, that is equal to E vector dot dA vector is equal to I dot I1, one minus sign will stay, so that is minus of E naught into dA. That is the flux for surface 1. What happens for surface 3? If I check for surface 3, you see here for surface 3 E vector that is equal to E naught into I cap, dA vector is equal to dA into I cap. For this surface it is in the rightward direction, right? So d phi, if I have to calculate the flux value here, then d phi is equal to, again I will do E dot dA. Now there is no minus sign, both are plus, 1 and 1, so it will be simply E into dA, right? Why so? Because we can say on the other way, in this case theta was equal to 180 degree. So from the formula directly, d phi is equal to E into dA into cos of theta means 180 degree. So it will become minus E into dA. For this surface here, theta is equal to 0 degree. So d phi is equal to E into dA into cos of 0 degree means simply E into dA. Think about surface 2 here. So for surface 2, if I want to calculate E vector, it is along I cap. So simply E naught into I cap. But the area vector, if I take about, this is the axis. This is the axis of the cylinder. And it is in the radial outward direction means dA is along j cap. So dA vector is equal to dA j cap. So d phi is equal to E naught dA I cap dot j cap. And we know that the dot product between two perpendicular vector is always equal to 0 degree. Sorry, 0. I'm sorry. So that means the result will be equal to 0. Right? So through surface 1, negative flux, that is minus E naught into dA. Through surface 3, positive flux, E naught into dA. And through this curved surface area, it is 0. So what is the total flux? So phi total is basically equal to minus plus, it will become 0. So net flux through this cylindrical element is basically equal to 0. Correct? So when the net flux through the cylindrical element is equal to 0, from Gauss's law, as we have stated, can you see here that I have said already, that is equal to Q enclosed by epsilon naught. I told Q enclosed by epsilon naught. So from Gauss's law, I can write from here, since the net flux equal to 0, so Q enclosed is also equal to 0. That means there is no charge inside the cylindrical element. So I can write no charge inside. Correct? This is clear? Fine. If the charge would have been there inside the cylindrical element, total flux wouldn't be 0. Chalo, next application we are taking hemispherical surface. In this hemispherical surface, we have three cases. In the three cases, we have three different directions of the electric field. I will tackle case by case. So I will take case A first. So all of your doubt will be cleared. Basic fundamental doubt, whatever you have regarding Gauss law and flux, I will clear it. So in this case, electric field is in the rightward direction. So that is I cap. So I will write E vector is equal to E naught into I cap. Try to understand that if I take a cross-sectional area, so this is the cross-sectional area I am going to take. All right. So through this cross-sectional area, you think here the field is entering this and here the field is coming out of the surface. Try to understand. Here field is entering and here field is coming out of the surface. So if I take this side as 1 and if I take this side as 2, as in the previous case we have seen, in case of 2, flux will be positive. In case of 1, flux will be negative. Why so? Because, very simple idea, for this boundary, this is the direction of area vector, that is n cap. Rather I should write minus n cap if I take this as plus n cap, and in this case this is plus n cap. Plus n cap means what? Nothing, plus I cap only here, and this is minus I cap. So here in this particular zone, phi entering is negative, phi coming out, outgoing, is positive. So net flux will become, so phi total will be 0. Alright, so case A is over. Think about case B. So for case B, the electric field is like this, that is along J cap. So E vector is equal to E naught J cap. And they are saying that the area vector is downward. We will think about this base only, because these lines are cutting this base perpendicularly. So for this, area vector is equal to, let us say, minus A naught of J cap. So what is the flux? Phi will be equal to minus of E naught into A naught. Right? Clear? Fine. Done. Next, if I want to calculate what is the flux passing through this curved surface, again the same concept will apply. Try to understand. I am asking now, what is the flux through the curved surface in case B? So can I write that in this case also, phi total is equal to 0. Why so? Because the electric field is cutting the surface like this. Okay, so while entering flux is positive, while outgoing flux is negative. So in that case, positive negative cancel, it becomes 0. So can I write that phi total means phi through the flat base plus phi through the curved surface is equal to 0. This is the total flux. So phi through the curved surface is equal to negative of phi through the flat base. So phi through flat base already you got minus of E naught into A naught. So minus minus plus, so it becomes E naught into A naught. How much is A naught? A naught is the area of this circle. So it will become E naught into pi capital R square if the radius is R for the base. Alright, simple. Now let us go to case C. So for case C, what will you check here? For case C, you see, for case C, the electric field lines are in the radial direction. Can you check? They are in the radial direction, like this, like this, like this. So if I take a small element over here, try to understand. If I take a small element over here, for this area, it is in that direction, that is along the radius. For this element, it is along the radius. for this element, it is along the radius. So all the small elemental areas has area vector along the radial direction, and electric field is also along the radial direction. So for case C, theta is basically equal to 0 degree. So if I write d phi will become simply E into dA. So phi will be equal to integration of E dot dA. So E into electric field is constant. dA means area of this hemispherical surface, that is simply 2 pi r square, right? So this is the answer for the third case. Clear? Totally understandable? Very good. Let's move on. Now, this is a broad application that I'm going to take, through which I will give you one concept, and next onwards it will be very easy for you to understand what's the game actually. So here what I'm taking, this is the surface and here a charge is kept. So I'm taking two extreme lines which are passing through the extreme points of this surface. Now you think, if I think about this portion here, if I think about this portion over here, maybe it is of irregular shape and size, but that doesn't matter. I'm just thinking about this portion over here. Think this portion, and I will take another portion over here, that is here. Think about this portion over here. Okay? Chalo. So how many lines that are passing through this zone? How many lines are passing through this zone? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? How many lines are cutting through this bigger zone? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the number remains same. What is the definition of the flux? It is the number of electric field line cutting a surface perpendicularly per unit area, right? So if I take this area vector here in that direction, and if I take the area vector here in this direction, will phi net make it 0? Yes. Why? Because if this is surface 1, if this is surface 2, then I can write phi through surface 1 is equal to minus of phi through surface 2. So phi through S1 plus phi through S2 is equal to 0, which I said. So one shortcut point you will remember, if a field line is cutting a surface twice, then it's going to give what it's going to give? It's going to give 0 net flux. See, it cuts this surface, this line cuts this surface twice. One it cuts here, another time it cuts here. So that means it is going to produce 0 net flux. Now on the basis of this concept, we can solve a real interesting question from H.C. Verma, which is there in exercise objective actually. So objective 2 it is there. What is this question? They are saying, let us read the question. You pause the screen, try on your own, and then go for the explanation part. So it says that there is a charge here at the center of a hemisphere. This is the hemisphere, no problem. A second charge capital Q is placed at one of the positions. There are 4 positions, A, B, C and D. In which of the positions of this second charge the flux of the electric field through the hemisphere remains unchanged? Now, that's a very interesting question. That means they are saying that out of these 4 positions, where we can keep this charge capital Q such that charge by this, a flux by this small q will not change. That means we have to find out the positions where flux due to capital Q will be 0. We have to find positions where flux due to capital Q through the hemisphere will be 0. That's the point. We will do it. Let's do it. So first, arbitrarily, let us take this point B. Correct? So if I take two extreme points, like this is one, I'm taking this is one line, right? And there is another line. Correct? So there will be multiple lines in between them, like this, like this, like this. Okay, fine. So there will be few lines which will be generating zero flux, like this line, like this line, because this line is cutting the surface twice here. But there will be many lines which are cutting the surface for a single time, like this one, and this one. So will it produce a finite flux? Yes, correct. So if the charge is kept at plus, this plus Q is kept at point B, then flux through this hemisphere will not be equal to flux due to small q only. It will be something which is not equal to flux due to small q. I hope this is clear to you, correct? D, if I keep this plus Q, it's a similar position, symmetrically opposite. So same logic will apply for D also. Now listen to me very carefully what logic I am going to apply for either of position A and C. Now you will understand very clearly. So I am going to redraw this diagram roughly. So here is the position C. Now let us go back to the diagram drawing again. I will take a little bit of time, so please bear with me. So this is one, and the other that is horizontally passing like this. I hope it is clear to you, right? Now see the beautiful thing, any other line if I take in between these lines, all are cutting the surface perpendicularly. All are cutting this surface perpendicularly. Sorry, twice. All the other lines are cutting this surface twice. Any line if you draw, any line. So that means that this line is cutting twice, this line is cutting twice, this line cutting twice, this, every single line. So all these lines cutting the hemisphere twice, right? So can I apply this logic that I told you already? Okay, on this side it is negative, on this side it is positive. So if it cuts twice, the flux due to capital Q through the hemisphere will be equal to 0. So will there be any change in flux due to small q? No, it remains same. So if the charge is kept either at position A or at position C, then flux will remain unchanged. So my answer is going to be either at position A or at position C. It's a very good question, delicate question and conceptual question. I hope you have completely understood, right? Chalo, let's move on. Now there's a very interesting and intriguing concept that we are going to do. That is the concept of solid angle. So what is the concept of solid angle basically? It's a very simple thing. Try to understand that. Suppose if somebody is viewing a line, somebody is observing a line. So these are the two extreme points of the line, and here is a point, and this point is indicating somebody's eye. So somebody is observing this line. So if this angle subtended is theta, if this is radius of curvature r, if this is s, we say what? S arc length is basically equal to r into theta, where theta is the angle. right? But this entire game will change if somebody is observing a surface. अब सोचो, suppose somebody is observing a surface from some point here, from some point here. तो अब now he has to look at each and every single corner. सोचो, so all the portions he has to observe. Correct? So here can I say that basically we will get a three-dimensional shape, a conical shape we will get, right? So there the angle subtended by a surface at a point is basically solid angle. Okay, this is simple terms you can remember, because this is also very much mathematical. I do not want to bring too much mathematics right now in the introductory lecture. So basically it is the angle subtended by a surface at a point is called solid angle. And in this particular representation you can see that we have taken a chunk, a conical chunk out of this sphere, correct? And this is supposed to be the center, which was here. So the angle that is subtending here is basically solid angle. How mathematically we define the solid angle, that is very important. How we define? Now from here in this diagram only, if I take a small portion, let us say this is a elemental area dA, and in this diagram this is the r vector you are saying, and I am imagining that this dA is basically in that direction. This is the direction of dA vector, which is represented by n cap. So by definition, solid angle, that means here I am talking about area subtended by this elemental area, I mean angle subtended by this elemental area at the center will be d omega is basically equal to projection of the area vector along the radial axis divided by r square. This is the mathematical definition we need to remember. Now it is a dot product between two vectors. dA vector we can write dA into n cap. dA is the magnitude, it is the unit vector, dot r cap divided by r square. Go back to the diagram. If I take this angle to be theta, let us say this angle is theta. So can I write that this is basically equal to d omega is equal to dA n cap dot r cap, means modulus of n cap into mod of r cap into cos of angle between them divided by r square. As we all know that magnitude of a unit vector is 1, so basically d omega will turn up to be dA cos theta divided by r square. So this is the mathematical equation indicating the solid angle subtended by that elemental area at the center, right? If there is a spherical surface, so let us consider a spherical surface. So for a spherical surface, this is the sphere, let us say. So for a sphere, all these elemental areas are basically having the direction along the radius, है ना? Simple thing to understand. अगर आप यहाँ पे एक एरिया वेक्टर लेते हो, डायरेक्शन क्या होगा? Along the radius, like this, like this. So in this case, theta is basically coming to be 0 degree. So from this result, d omega we can write dA into cos of 0 degree divided by r square. So how much will it turn out to be? dA by r square. Now omega is basically integration of dA by r square. Now here r is constant, everywhere capital R, right? So 1 by capital R square integration of dA. If I keep on adding all this small elemental area, we will get the total curved surface area, that is 4 pi r square. So it will become 1 by r square into 4 pi r square. So for a spherical surface solid angle, this r square and r square cancelled, we get 4 pi. Now that's a value to be remembered. So for a spherical surface, what is the value of solid angle? That is equal to 4 pi. Please don't forget it. Okay now? Fine. And one more point also we will remember over here only. That is also a very important point. Remember, a point particle, a point charge or a point particle, whatever you say, a point charge maintains spherical symmetry. A point charge maintains spherical symmetry. Why? I will just shortly explain to you. If you take, suppose if you take a point charge here plus q, then take a Gaussian boundary, and if you think about the electric field will be in all radial direction like this. Like this. Pardon me for the little bit of defect in the diagram, as I am doing with hand only, right? So these are the direction of electric field, and electric field due to a positive charge, we know it is in the radially outward direction. So this is the direction of electric field, and so just before I have explained all the elemental area vectors, they will also be directed along r cap. So when we are going to encircle a point charge with a spherical surface, it will maintain spherical symmetry, and for that the value of solid angle will be equal to 4 pi. Right? Correct? Clear to everyone? Fine. So we will just have a small derivation to prove this Gauss's law that we can drag from here. Just see, we have written close integration of E vector dot dA vector. So in this case, since they are in the same direction, so we will write E vector into dA. See, this E, that is electric field created by a point charge at the surface, will be equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught q by capital R square into dA. So if I take q by 4 pi epsilon naught R square common, close integration dA will make q by 4 pi epsilon naught R square into 4 pi R square. So if 4 pi R square cancels, then flux close integration of E dot dA is coming to be q by epsilon naught. Correct? That's what Gauss law stated. Right? Only we have proved it. We can do an alternative. This is method 1 by using the Coulomb's law. We can do it with the help of method 2 also. What is method 2? Check out here. I will take the same form, that is close integration of E dot dA, which is equal to, I will write like E into, let us say, r cap dA into n cap. All right. So close integration. If I write kq by r square r cap dA n cap. I hope you are understanding. So I can take kq out of the integration within bracket, within integration. What we are getting? dA n cap dot r cap by r square. All right. Now, if you closely look at this term, this is nothing but solid angle, right? So that is equal to, we will write kq close integration of d omega. For sphere we know it is 4 pi, so k means 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught q into 4 pi cancel. Again the result E dot dA vector close integration, you are getting q by epsilon naught. So these are the two ways in which we can prove Gauss law indeed, or derive Gauss law, the integral form. One with the help of Coulomb's law and the other is with the help of solid angle. Okay, all right. Now we will just have few examples in our mind. Quickly we will wrap up. One, we have a positive charge and we have a negative charge over here. Few lines are emerging from here. This is a very famous question actually, you will see everywhere, and on the basis of this particular question, we can have some brilliant questions which I will discuss in Feel the Physics series. So let us say here the lines are generating at an angle alpha and here it is terminating at an angle beta. Here the charge is Q1 and here the charge is Q2. So here also one fact you have to remember, if you have a surface here like this and there is a point, this is the axis. So if this angle is phi, let us say, or I will take this angle to be alpha. So then solid angle phi will be equal to 2 pi, sorry, not phi, I will write better by omega. Omega is equal to 2 pi into 1 minus cos alpha. So please remember this result. I will do the derivation in the Feel the Physics series part, not here. So omega equal to 2 pi into 1 minus cos alpha. So that means here you see you will have a surface like this. So through this surface field lines are coming out and there is another symmetric surface over here through which the field lines are terminating. Now for this Q1, the field lines are in all possible direction, correct? So out of all these field lines, how much portion is going through this particular surface? See here. So I can write flux out is equal to flux in. This is flux out and this is flux in. So flux out is equal to phi due to Q1 divided by, so point charge, how much solid angle will it subtend? 4 pi, because it maintains spherical symmetry. So this is flux generated by Q1 per unit solid angle into how much solid angle it is subtending, that is 2 pi into 1 minus cos alpha. Come here, flux due to Q2 divided by 4 pi, same logic, flux per unit solid angle into how much solid angle it is subtending, 2 pi into 1 minus cos beta, and these two factors are equal. So here we can see this cancelled by 2, it is also cancelled by 2, these two cancelled. So phi due to Q1 means how much? Simple, by Q1 by epsilon naught total flux into 1 minus cos alpha is equal to phi due to Q2 is Q2 by epsilon naught into 1 minus cos beta. So by applying a trigonometric identity, you can have a suitable result. Alright, fine, let's move on. It is a direct application. It is again a question that I have chosen from Shashi Bhushan Tiwari, a great book. But definitely you should not look at the solution, because there is a general tendency for most of the student to look at the solution after trying the question for one time, and eventually you will feel this question is very easy, and if the same question is coming after 2 months, it will come a new question to you. So that's why try on your own. So now here in this case there are two charges, Q1 and Q2, and they are asking what is a flux, that is phi 1 and phi 2. What is phi 1? Phi 1 is a flux through the circular phase 2r, that means flux produced by this Q1 through this. So that is a very easy thing to calculate. You try to understand. We will take these two extreme lines, right? Can I calculate this angle? If this angle is alpha, let us say this is alpha, can I calculate alpha? Yes, I can, because I can write cos alpha is basically equal to base is h divided by hypotenuse. How much is that? See, this is 2r, hypotenuse is root under of 4r square plus h square. Okay, I hope you got it. Right. So what is the flux 1? Phi 1 is equal to flux due to charge here, correct? And how much charge is there? Okay, so Q, see, so Q divided by epsilon is the total flux divided by per unit solid angle is 4 pi into how much solid angle it is subtending? 2 pi, I'm sorry, just write a little bit bigger, 2 pi into 1 minus cos alpha. Cos alpha value already you know, substitute, you will get phi 1. What about phi 2 then? All of you guys, phi 2, we will calculate like this. Simple, right? So I will take this angle to be beta. I will take this angle to be beta. If that is beta, how much is cos beta? Cheppu. Cos beta is equal to height h divided by root under of h square plus r square. Fine. So what is the flux phi 2? Phi 2 is equal to total flux is q by epsilon naught divided by per unit solid angle is 4 pi into what is the solid angle? 2 pi into 1 minus cos of beta. Do you know beta? Cos beta? Yes, we know. So we'll just substitute the values and we will calculate what is phi 1 by phi 2. Correct? I hope all of you have enjoyed the class. So today's class we have restricted only up to the integral form of Gauss law, flux calculation, solid angle, right? In the next class, shortly I am coming up with the differential form of Gauss law. What is a shortcut trick that you can apply with the help of that, and how we are going to redefine the concept of solid angle and field line clubbed together, right? If you do like the video, please like, subscribe and share. Thank you.